Welcome to the August School Board meeting. Unfortunately, this is the last time we meet at 4 o'clock this year. I know that some of you are sad about that, but anyway, welcome to, I was not at the board portion last time, I was at the work session, so welcome to the new staff members that we have here, and there are several, so I know I've met all of you, but welcome again. Welcome to Jake Martin, who is our new student rep, the third one now that has come through, so we will see him again. So there are a few changes to the agenda, so I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda with the additions and changes that are in front of you.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any questions or discussion on that? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. I missed 1 month and I'm kind of not saying this was normal. Anyway, all right, next. Recognition of visitors in public forum. Is there anybody here wishing to address the board at all this afternoon? If not, we'll move on. Next, consent agenda. Entertain a motion on that.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any questions at all from the bills or anything else that's on there? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Look how fast we got to you. You're up next. Jake's here to give us a student report on what's going on in the district for students.
Awesome.
You're good, just like you are.
All right, so the first thing that is going on for students that I'm going to talk about is Student Council. We have our midnight meeting this Wednesday, and at that midnight meeting we form into committees and we'll talk about several different things, one of them being the tailgating, which is we use as fundraising for Student Council, and that comes up later in the fall. Another thing we talked about is the back to school dance, and last year we had our highest numbers for the back to school dance, so that was really cool. And then also for dances we have our homecoming dance, and we formed a kind of a tradition of doing a black light dance with that, so we make a lot of money doing that, selling shirts, and that's kind of a cool thing for us now too. Another thing is the carnival. Our carnival is kind of almost a free second half of the day for us, where students get to get out of class and have fun, and they go and play carnival games, and we have a powder puff football game where it's the junior girls versus the senior girls in football, so that's really cool. And the last thing we'll talk about is coronation and royalty, and so we'll form that for homecoming, and we'll have a little ceremony for our king and queen, the rest of our royalty, and that'll be really cool. Another thing is Saber Splash. We had our meetings just in the past week or so here, and we had a speaker come, and her name was Willow Sweeney, and she kicked us off by talking about our top 20s and our bottom 80s for how we're feeling that day. And our top 20s would be if we're really positive and outgoing, and our bottom 80s would be if we're not so positive and not being great role models for the freshmen. And then the advisory council stayed after she spoke, and they formed a plan for what we would work on the next 2 days in Saber Splash. And then the next 2 days was planning with the whole group of juniors and seniors, and we worked on decorations and different videos that we'll have throughout the day and activities and such. And our first day of school is for Saber Splash, and that is all the incoming freshmen or first year students and the juniors and seniors that participate in Saber Splash. And then the next day after that is the first day for everybody. And so talking about the first day of school, open house, as many of you probably know, is on the 26th for the high school. I'm personally volunteering to help incoming students find their ramp up to readiness teachers, and at ramp up I believe they'll be handing out laptops, but I don't know that for sure, but that's what I was getting. And also at open house you can get a parking pass if you're a junior or senior, and for some sophomores, and like I said, the MacBooks will be handed out. Also, sports and activities started. Practice began on Monday the 11th, that was last week. Those sports included football, cross country, girls and boys soccer, girls swimming, girls tennis, volleyball, and the 3-act play, which is a 4-act now, so they just are going to call it the fall play. So that's cool. The first competitions for sports are on the 22nd, and that is girls tennis and boys soccer, and so that'll kick off our sports season for us, and shortly after that everyone else will follow in suit and have many games and such. So that's my report.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Jay? All right, thanks again and welcome.
Thank you.
Next, Mr. Schweber, Superintendent Report and Celebrations.
One of the things that I'd like to make a point of is in my first 7 weeks here, I've had an opportunity to sit down and meet with, roughly, I did my quick count here just before the board meeting. I think I've had 50 different one-to-one conversations with folks in the district or in the community. And then thankfully I've had a couple, probably a couple other dozen outside of that group. So I'm feeling good about the process of where things are happening, but I am really antsy about school beginning. It just seems like we need to have students and teachers, and let's get this ball really rolling. So I'm looking forward to, obviously this next week we bring in our new teaching staff, and they're here on Wednesday and Thursday, and so we have quite a bit of that. We have our new student night tomorrow night, so you start to see some students and you start to get the feel of that taking place. And then obviously the next week we have all of our staff back in place and we get some things working, and then finally after Labor Day we get to go to school and we see what's happening. I've had an opportunity to go over and observe a little bit of what's happening at the high school in terms of athletic practices. I love when we talked about the 3-act play and making it into a 4-act play. They're often going and using the auditorium to its fullest. One of the things that I really felt good about is the 3 students I've been able to talk to the most are our 3 board representatives. I've had an opportunity to talk to all of them. For some reason or other, Stacy keeps thinking I need to do that out of my office and over on a little bit more neutral ground. So what was the name of the place we did that, Jake?
Liquid assets.
Liquid assets over there. So I'm feeling good about contributing to the community. At least I didn't buy him anything while I was there. A nice guy would have done that. But anyway, the amount of activities and things that our kids are involved with is feels more familiar to a smaller school than what we are. It's what really makes us, I think, unique in that we have that level of student involvement, student engagement, and yet we're still a pretty good sized school district when you start comparing us to others. And that's a really great thing about the culture that I see in our community, and I see it coming out in our students, and that's a really fantastic thing. So I think we're off to a good start. Just so everyone kind of understands, the board from 1 to 3:30 today spent time looking at our middle school complex from a facility standpoint, and then also went out to Oak Ridge and looked at it from the same standpoint. And it really gave an opportunity for the 2 principals to share a little bit about what their buildings are doing right now from the facility standpoint. And Julie did a really exceptional job making sure she also brought in some content in terms of talking about what she would like it to do in the future. Kip, we didn't have the chance to quite do it as much out at his. But I think that's a good use of our time. That was it was very good for me, and I hope for the rest of the board.
It was about safety, right, and not breaking your shoulder?
Well, for Julie, we might need to work on that just a little bit. But so I think our plan is that our next meeting, our next regular scheduled board meeting, we'll do that again starting at 4 o'clock, and we start at the high school that night, and then we'll go out to Oak Ridge and Pine Meadow. And I think that night we're having open house at Pine Meadow. Would that be right, Sarah? What do we have going on at your building that night? Something else is going on. Maybe it's a PTO meeting? That might be what it is. So we'll continue that. And so I think we're working well in that regard in terms of trying to get things started. So that's what I have for tonight.
Thank you very much. I know there haven't been a lot of school board committees that have met, the technology committee met, so they want to, and the notes are in front of you, if someone from that committee just wants to highlight.
Yeah, it was actually a great meeting. I'll just make it real fast in the highlight. I think one of the things that Jason and I were excited about is in regard to the additional staff in the ITS area. 1 additional staff in the middle school and at the high school. And the professional development framework that was established around that's pretty exciting. Kind of moving more some people into content area specialists in regard to technology. And so I think there's some really great moves that way. The distribution of devices are a little different this year, as in ramp up's going to be distributing those, and then at open house at the middle school distributing those. So that's going to be a little different than we did last year. Also, we really feel good about the fact that we're giving fifth graders full access and that we're really ramping up the access to the K through 4 with additional carts, additional opportunities, and additional access. So really, we're just kind of moving forward. And I guess in one big bell swoop, 3 years ago when we started this process, or 4 years ago when we went out to our voters and asked, as this is part of our additions that we're doing to our school district, I think it's great that we're kind of in phase 3-ish into this as we keep moving forward and keep getting better and smarter and faster and following through with what we say. And Kyle did a great meeting and following through with everything. And did I miss anything?
I have a question.
Yeah.
The professional development framework has been established, you wrote in here, for just the IT specialists. I mean, are they having a separate type of how they're building their team? Is that kind of what that's after?
Yeah, it really too, and we're kind of talking, well, I'll let you maybe
What's that?
answer that.
Yeah,
better.
what was the question again?
About how you're going to work with ITS this year,
Professional development.
the months
Yes.
that you laid out, and if you just kind of want to talk.
Yeah, in the past, the ITS, this started last year, the ITS member, the principal, myself sat bi-weekly meetings in the middle school and high school. We kind of talked about the happenings of the buildings. We're doing that once a month now. In addition to, we're also having it once a month. We're the same group along with Kate. We meet and we talk about networking. We look at some structure, best practices, goal setting that's in there. Look at conferences, provide an opportunity. If you remember last year, the middle school had what we called it was a kickoff for TEDx. We want to make that a district initiative. So some of those frameworks are in there for our ITS, make sure we're additional attention.
Well, that's great. I mean, it's nice to have you guys ahead of everybody else. I mean, we always want you to be pulling us along. So I was just curious if it's separate or not. So.
Any other questions? Any other committee reports besides that one? I know next month we'll have a lot more, but
It's not really a committee, but Pam and I and Mr. Schrader went to the Minnesota School Board Association's summer session, and they did a big thing on bullying. Had a wonderful speaker, Dr. Zimmerman, who did a little bit of canned, but he actually has a really good message, and he did an opening and an ending presentation, and then they had multiple sessions that you could go to. I can't think of some of the titles. But we
There was a
talked about some of them
Yeah.
run off for you guys if you're interested in kind of reading through, because everybody had outlines of what they spoke about.
Some of it was some of the laws that were passed, the legislation that was passed was really good. There was actually addition about, if you wanted to have a levy in your district, they did a program on that to talk about how you should handle that. I really felt, you kind of go into these a little bit, and I really felt it was a great 8 hours spent. I really did. I thought it was good.
Mhm. They did some case law updating, how to be a better advocate for your district, world's best workforce, which we're way ahead on that, through the case work. Questions and answers with the commissioner, which actually they've done the last couple of years, and it's very good. But even implementing the Safe and Supportive Schools Act, which is something that is a goal for our board, is to make sure that we're maintaining that. So it's a wonderful presentation, and we did plan on running off copies of it.
Yeah.
We'll get that.
that'd be great. That's good. Thanks for going to that. All right, if there are no more reports, we will move on to the action items. There are 3 of them. First one is to approve the personal omnibus resolution that's in front of you. And I see the changes are on board book.
Make a motion to approve the personal omnibus resolution.
Okay, motion made by Jason. Dan, did you second it? Seconded by Dan. Any questions or discussion on this before we vote? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, we have one fundraiser brought before us. Do you want to introduce this?
No, I don't know enough about the
Okay,
cross-country
fair enough.
fundraiser to make Brenda, do you know anything about
I mean,
that?
the application's in there.
I mean, it's, yeah,
pretty detailed.
it seemed pretty straightforward. I really don't,
$4,000 that they make.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you can.
I was
see
hoping you
annual.
guys knew what it was. It looked good to me.
I do it every year.
They've done it
Yes.
for 10 years, I think.
I just wanted to put you on the spot. You do know what
I was just checking, I didn't want
Yeah, you did
to
put-
steal you thunder there, but, all right. Entertain a motion then to
I'll
approve
make a
this.
motion to cross-country fundraiser.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mary, seconded by Jason. No questions or discussion then, I'll take that. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Lastly, contract for local 248 clerical union has been settled, and I was looking for an approval.
Correct.
Do you want to introduce that at all? Or we can, you can introduce it and then we can have a motion and then questions after the motion.
Sure. We met for the final time, I think it was Mike Spaniard's last day, right before you started, so
Right.
would that be July 30th? And settled this, our final contract. It was actually settled one day prior to the expiration of their contract, so I'm very proud of that, even if we're not approving it till tonight. All the information is in front of you. It's pretty similar to the other contracts we've approved that are non-certified staff. 2% increase on each year. We changed some stuff with retiree health. We actually got a lot of contract language changes from the district perspective that we needed to clean up. So we were grateful for those changes to be made. The biggest thing is in the past, there was an option for the clerical union members to have 12-month pay option, even though they only worked 9 months out of the year, and it was getting to be kind of an administrative nightmare. That has been taken away, so we no longer have that in any of our contracts. Right? See, we've gotten away from the 12-month pay for any of the 9-month employees.
Yes.
For 9-month employees, non-certified staff, correct? So that was something we were really looking to clean up. We did that in most of our contracts this year. So if anyone, we can have a motion and then I can entertain questions.
Yeah, entertain the motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract for local 284 clerical union.
Second.
Motion made by Jason, seconded by Dan. Questions or discussion for Chris?
I
Or you
should
wanna add
also,
one more?
sorry, the union did approve this contract back on August 4th. So it's important to know.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll just shout out a thank you again
Yes,
for
thank
working
you.
on these contracts and getting us all up to date. Everyone appreciates that.
Yes.
All those in favor then for approving this contract signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, oops, am I one screen ahead of myself? I am. All right, scheduling work sessions and committee meetings. And there are several that need to be done, so if we want to take them one at a time, if we want to, I know that Jason, Mary, and I am on the facilities and finance, so if we could, do you want to
Back to back.
double those up? I guess I'd over
Okay.
to you and
I'm
to
all-
Steve on when you want to meet.
We're okay. We can make those work. So what are you thinking of doing, the facilities?
Or how soon do you want to?
Well, we're doing our other walkthrough on facilities at the next board meeting. And then we're going to have a work session conversation the following week. So the 22nd of September will be the work session that we have scheduled. So board meeting's the 15th, and so then we'd have the work
Or
session.
do we meet the 22nd because Monday's a holiday?
I'm pretty sure the board,
No, we only push it if the holiday is actually.
Okay, all
that
right,
day.
just checking.
So-
Okay, then I.
so the 15th and
Okay,
20
so 15th and
is a regular,
22nd.
and then 22nd would be the work session.
Okay.
So that could take care of us in terms of facilities. And we've got a policy meeting, we've already got that one scheduled. When is it, September 4th, right?
So then the week after the 15th is what you're saying? So the week
Right.
of or it could be later that week, or it could be the week of the 22nd. Jason, I know you travel for work, so maybe. I had the school room the 22nd, so.
That's the
Maybe on the
walk.
15th.
The walkthroughs at 15.
Right, so we're doing that at 4, starting at the high school.
And the board meets at 7.
Correct.
So we're looking for a finance meeting, is that what we're doing?
Finance / facilities
So-
meeting for the three of us.
So I'm good anytime that week.
Mary,
do an 8 o'clock meeting?
She'll
Oh,
be
right.
back at work.
So do you want to do a 4:15 meeting?
That's, you can get here by then.
Can we do?
Yeah, look at your soccer schedule.
Yeah, I know, it's soccer stuff, so Wednesday?
Wednesday? Sure.
So the 17th or 24th? 17th
17?
works for me.
Okay, so we're
Does that
going
work, Mary?
17 is great.
Yeah, 4:15,
So
so.
facilities and finance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
It just
they
works.
believe in each other.
I'm coming into the
Yeah,
new
that's-
age.
Where's the paper count?
All right,
They're all set up.
Negotiations committee does not need to meet.
yeah, you're on vacation for a while. Community outreach, that involves people that aren't in this room right now, so
Can we set that up?
we can.
Why don't you give me some
You and
dates?
I, you and I.
Yeah, why don't the two of us work that?
I'll email Jeff and then he'll talk to Mary.
Because we've got a lot of people that are wanting for that group to meet.
Right.
So we need to get that one going.
Community outreach.
And then just tech committee, you guys have some scheduled or you're not meeting for a while or?
They just had
You
one.
just had one, so you're good. All right. Anything else?
I think that's it.
All right, I just have to write myself a note to remember to.
Well, it might depend on 9 and 5,
Not, oh,
Right.
October. Okay.
if you want to.
Right, we can always revert back to that. I thought about that too. Okay, we'll just move along and if we have to hop back, we will. All right, next we have some very important policies that we're going to review. 502, 503, 504, well, 502 through 509. Any questions? I guess now is the time to discuss, so if you have questions on these.
On policy 505, in regard to response,
What page are you on?
yeah, it's in procedures, so it's policy by page.
It's at the bottom, the big black.
Oh, there, 505-4, thank you. So anyway, it's number 6, procedures. One of the concerns I have is the 24-hour response in which our principals have to have if someone wants to distribute materials. This talks about distributing and writing materials. I just feel that 24 hours to me feels like it's quick. What if the principal's in meetings? What if they're out of the building that day? It feels quick. It's 24 hours.
Okay, good.
It can be longer?
It can be-
Can be much, it can be long, it has to be
At
the
least
that's the
24 hours.
shortest.
Oh, I thought it was the longest. Never mind. Because I thought, my gosh.
Oh, that's all right.
Good to get it out right now.
I thought it was a long, I thought they have to have more time.
Yeah, they can drag it on.
Okay, never mind.
All right.
Okay, that was my concern. Oh, and one last thing in regard to this policy. What if people put, and this isn't in here, I just have a question to ask. What if people put flyers on the cars outside? It's not allowed, but what if it happens? And if it happens, do they have to pay to clean it up? How does that handle?
Who would the people be? Because this refers to students and school employees.
Right.
I'm asking, you know what I'm asking though?
But that's a big difference between, because if it's students doing it, then they're eligible for our discipline that goes along with it as well as our employees. But for instance, if the local pizza parlor wants to go and say this on everybody's door, that doesn't follow under our school policy regulation.
Tell them not to.
Well, and we can issue, I mean, if we wanted, we could get them for trespass
Right.
because they have now done something on property that's not their own. But that would be a city, that'd be an issue with our police department rather than with and with city planning. I don't even know what the city ordinance is, that's why I'd have to double check to see that. Now, students, it's very different because that's what this was relating to. Students doing something inappropriate or staff.
So if someone comes in and papers the cars, and then it's all now trash, it needs to be cleaned up, who pays for it? Depending if students did it or the outside vendor did it.
Right. If students would do it, our normal policy, I believe, would be having our students clean it up. And if it's done by outside, it's probably our custodial staff that gets stuck with doing that.
Would it be fair to say we'd probably contact those people?
Oh, we definitely would very quickly, yes. Has that been an issue? Okay.
I just thought.
It does happen from time to
Because
time.
it
right?
costs to clean it up, that's
Yeah.
the deal.
Oh,
It
by
costs-
far. That's the
Yeah, so I
bigger-
just think they should charge the people that didn't to clean it.
Any other questions on that group of policies? Okay, we'll go to the next two. 501 and 506, weapons and then discipline. And you had changes, and I saw red on these when I was reading them. So anything you would like to highlight that your committee discussed at all? Mary or Dan?
Once again, with 50, which one is it?
501.
First one's weapons.
501, we're the same as MSBA except for the italics. So we're consistently following that pattern.
It looks like you just cleaned up the language a little bit.
We
And they
did.
just did that at the end of their section.
Yeah, so
They
it's just,
tackled it when they said they weren't going to, so
Okay.
then we had, because we had previously done this one, October 2012.
Right.
So we had to kind of come in the end.
Yeah, we did talk quite a bit about that first one, about taking the button to the principal's office. Not a good idea, to carry a gun into school, you know, so we
We
made
changed
sure,
something
no, we
there?
did.
We did.
We made sure it was very clear. You notify the office that you made a big boo-boo. You don't carry your gun into school. That would not be a good idea.
And then anything, okay, so discipline, looks like it's been revised several times, reviewed several times. That's a long one.
so it looks like the only thing you changed from the second one is how we handled the expulsion hearing.
Yes.
The link.
And we're curious from our legal person on the board. In the past, it appeared you could appoint, the board had a whole bunch of options.
Yeah, that seems like it's
Way-
probably inconsistent with Minnesota law, would
Yeah.
be my guess.
So we tried to clean that up because it's the school board's responsibility.
You know,
You can appoint somebody to do some of the research for you.
you
to
can
do
have an
some-
investigation,
Right.
outside investigator, but the board is going to determine whether or not the expulsion happens.
And it was confusing in that
Mhm.
language
Agree.
because it looked like at a point, you could have this outside person make the decision.
Right.
Right.
And they
And-
should just give a recommendation or
Correct.
give the facts and then the board makes the determination. So is this consistent now with MSBA, would you say, or
Well,
fairly
we kind of
consistent?
changed it up a little bit because we didn't like that they were giving those options.
Right.
We didn't want a board member assigned to do
Yeah.
a hearing.
No,
So
I think
that's why
it reads well now, I
we
just was
changed
curious.
it
So
from
this was
MSBA's.
MSBA's. Oh, see,
And we changed
sometimes
it.
they,
We are flexible.
we are just, can create better
Very
policy.
careful.
Thank you for making those changes. It does read a lot more clearly in number 11,
Mhm.
especially as to how that is handled.
All right, any other questions on that at all? Thanks for doing that. It's a lot of work, I know, everyone. Two more things and then we're done, but they're not quick ones.
No, these are good ones.
I'd like to welcome, it looks like Kay Nelson will be our contact person to talk about our community survey results. So welcome, Kay.
All right, so what we're going to do today, you guys have all seen the survey and results, so we're not going to go detail by detail, but I'll just kind of highlight each piece, and then if you have discussion points that you want to bring up, feel free to do that. And the principals, if you guys have something you want to add when we get to your slides, please do that as well. So just a little background information. We did develop a new survey, started in March. Michelle and I met and got some other folks of you involved in kind of looking at what other districts are doing and making sure that we were meeting the requirements of the new World's Best Workforce legislation. And so that was kind of the impetus to get it going. Our survey window last year was May 14th through the 21st. We communicated through our Skylert system, the website, all of the school sites emailed announcements as well. And so we had 923 people who started the survey and 837 who completed every piece. So some of the questions, they had the option of skipping or NA, so that's kind of, the numbers are a little funky. We had mostly parent response. 91% of our respondents were parents, and we had 9% community members. Our demographics, as you can see, were really, the two big groups were ages 36 to 55 were our respondents, and again, we had 912 people who completed this slide. Attending our school was one of the questions if they had kids in the district, and this brought them through where do you have kids in the school and to those specific questions. So we had 821 yes and 96 no. So the first two or three slides here are on Sartell High School, and really we need to be very proud of the results that we are going to see because the responses were really outstanding. As you can see, for our categories of strongly agree and agree that they would recommend, or the quality was overwhelmingly very good. So this is where we kind of got into the detailed pieces, and I'll just highlight a few for each school so that you can't read these here, but you guys have them in front of you. So the categories of our questions were asking about recommending each of our schools to a friend or neighbor, and then the transition to each building was the next piece. If our kids are prepared for career and college readiness, variety of courses, we have rigorous course options, variety of post-secondary, etc. So for the high schools, you can see again, really, really great. 91.2% of our folks would either strongly agree or agree that they would recommend our high school. We had 95.9% of the respondents feeling that the high school offers a variety of courses. And the other really high point was the rigorous course options. That was another 96%. Brenda, do you want to add anything to any of those?
Yes, we do look at these, and I think Kay sent this out in, was it in June? Early June. And I think every principal is eager to see the responses that come back, and most of that is very, very positive. But the very last piece on the survey asks whether or not the SHS administration is accessible to me when I have questions or concerns. And first I took that personally. I'm beyond that now. And it really bothered me because I think we have, if anybody's calling our office, whether that be our school counseling side, our assistant principal activities, or my office, they're calling because it's important and we need to be responsive. So I shared this data with our school counselors, with our activities director and our assistant principal, and we've all kind of put together some action steps that we're going to do to improve that. In our counseling office, especially since we've added a third counselor, we should be getting back to people within 24 hours. But we have to make sure that we're smart about how we're using that time. So they have a really great plan for that. And one of the other things that we're going to do is change how we do our newsletter. We send out lots of information from a lot of different sources, and we're going to continue to include all of those sources, but in one location. And we're going to do it by grade. What a 9th grade parent perhaps needs to see is very different from what a senior parent may need to see, and there's just a lot of information to wade through, lots of emails going out. So we're going to try to streamline that a little bit more to help, I just think help parents navigate all of that information. In addition, we're going to do some parent informational sessions on relevant topics as they relate to the high school, and just make sure that all of us are getting back to parents in a timely manner, which is 24 hours. Even if you don't have an answer, just to let them know that you received the email or the voicemail. So, and I think all of us would speak to the fact that we look at the survey and do something with it. So.
And I want to thank Brenda for sharing that, because that's what makes this survey powerful. Because if we just give a survey and we put it in the folder so every year we can say we've done a survey, well, okay, we met, we can check off. But if we use that survey to enhance what we're doing for our kids, for our community, now it's a meaningful tool. And so that's tough when I didn't catch, well, yes I did the first time through, because it was just enough different. You start to check and you ask the question why. So I give Brenda a lot of credit for that. But as we go around the district, people do look. They try to understand what is it we can do better, and that's a great thing. We want to continue to do that. So.
Before we move off of this slide, because this one does have a lot of detail, were there any other things that you guys?
I actually, that was my last one on this one was attending to the child's social and emotional needs. I kind of noticed that on both the high school and the middle school. Just your thought process on that.
I think social emotional needs are increasing. I think Julie and I both speak to this. We're very excited and thankful that the board has added another counselor. You know, the middle school is nearly 1,200 students. We're over 1,100 students for 2 people. That's a lot of students to deal with. So adding a full-time counselor at each site will certainly, I think, impact that in a very positive way. And I think as a district, that's a goal. So I know that at each of our sites, that will be something that we'll be focusing on, is that social emotional piece.
Okay, so then the next slide kind of honed down into each of the content areas, asking about satisfaction levels. And again, as you can see, most of our responses are very high. In the high school, the only area that was a little lower was the music, was at 67.8% for satisfied and very satisfied. So that'll probably be an area that we'll look at, but overall, good. Okay. All right, and then we move to the middle school. Again, you can see that the overall quality of education at the middle school was ranked like 97% satisfaction. That's awesome. Same questions exactly at the middle school as at the high school. So again, I'll just highlight some of the things. So at the middle school, again, recommending Sartell Middle School to a friend or neighbor, 96.4% were the high points. Again, the variety of course offerings was one of the highest ones, and the the welcoming school environment and safe learning environment were both well in the 90s for our positives. The two areas that were not low, but the lower were the transitioning from the elementary to the middle school, and I know that's been something that's been worked on pretty intensely, and then career and college readiness, so continue to work in those areas. Do you have anything to add, Julie? Do you guys have any reason to focus on this? Yeah.
Do you think people had a hard time at career and college readiness? Do you really get anything about that in middle school?
Right.
I'm thinking more about high school readiness or,
Mm-hmm.
I just know as a parent, I felt that out. Even though I
What does
know
that
we're
mean?
almost with you, but
You called me right.
so maybe that people didn't.
Right, what does that mean to
Or-
I think we need to do probably also some education on it.
What's it mean?
Because one of the things that, as we've been looking at assessment data and recognizing where we are, that really a lot of things that we do in the elementary level, well, if you look at a student's assessment history and you see their change or lack of change, you can notice that a lot of trends that started in the elementary are pretty foretelling of where a student's going to be when they're in junior high and high school. So we really, if we want a child to be on a career and technical, if we want to be on the world's best workforce path, we need to be looking at what we're doing in the elementary. Part of that is helping our parents understand that that's why we talk about it in that language. That world's best workforce is not just a high school issue. It's a K-12 issue if we want to make that. So I agree. I think it's a part, I think it is confusing. But I think that's where we have some opportunity maybe to educate some.
I don't think we're going to afford that, I just don't think it works.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
This was, again, now moving into more of the academic focus for the middle school. Excellent responses across the board in every area. World language was a little lower, and I think we've looked at that and we'll continue to look at how we're operating world language. I think we've done some really great growth in streamlining our work from middle school to high school, and the teachers worked really hard together last year to make our practice in both of those courses match well. So I think that we're doing pretty well there, but we need to keep looking at that. Any questions on that one? Okay. Oak Ridge. Quality of education at Oak Ridge Elementary. Again, you can see it's pretty much off the charts there. You couldn't ask for much better results than that. Again, that's over about 94% of our constituents we are excellent or good. And high marks in all of these areas. Recommending Oak Ridge Elementary was 95% positive. Preparing students for success at middle and high school levels was 92%. The welcoming environment, safe learning environment, people are very satisfied with what they're receiving there. Okay. Again, high marks in our academic areas. As you guys know, reading will be a big focus for us this year as we move forward with our new curriculum, and teachers, I think they're excited. They're a little like, oh my gosh, this is so much stuff, but I think it's going to be a really good move for us. And so I think things are going very well in those areas too. Okay, I'm going to keep going on. So we're next to Pine Meadow. Again, outstanding results for Pine Meadow in terms of feelings about the quality of overall education. Same, pretty similar results to Oak Ridge here. 93% recommend Pine Meadow Elementary School, and preparing for success in middle and high school, over 90% for that. Welcoming environment, safe learning environment, these were all really extremely high marks. It's nice to be redundant. And in our academics, again, all really high. I think everything was one area of music was 89.2, but everything else was above 90%, so pretty awesome. Okay, early childhood education was part of our survey as well. We had 88 people respond to this section, so it's a smaller group of people responding, but again, a really nice survey results. So we have high marks in both of our excellent and good for overall quality. And these questions were a little different. So again, the first question always was about recommending friends or neighbors to the program, 85.2%. The second question was about success in elementary school. That was about 82.8%. Class size, social emotional needs, welcoming environment, safe learning environment, and the administration is accessible. That was the lowest piece there was 77.9, but we've made some changes in that area too, so we know that that will improve. Okay. The academics, of course, at early childhood are a little bit different. We have the emerging reading skills, the motor and writing skills, the math and number sense skills, music, movement, and arts, individualized experiences, and social emotional development. Again, we're really focusing this year on the reading pieces. Teachers are really looking to align with what we're doing in early childhood, what we're doing K-5, so that K-4, so that'll be a big growth for us. And we are also implementing a new math curriculum for our preschool, so they're very excited and have done a lot of work with that already this summer. Questions on that? Okay. All right, so then we move kind of to the district level pieces, and so in order to get into that part of the survey, the question again was about, do you have a child who attends school inside or outside? And outside of school, only 51 responses for that, so most of our respondents were from people who are students in the district. So we asked this question before, why are you not, what caused you to have your child enroll in an alternative? Again, total of 49 responses, and you could choose more than one response. So it's possible that people answered to more than one of these, but really, really great numbers. Consider the size of the school district, and not to focus on just want to focus on only 10 people, 3,700 kids with a negative experience. So the other responses, I'm sure you had a chance to look at, they were kind of all over the board in terms of why.
That negative school experience, that is somewhat disturbing to me, even though there's low numbers of it, but I'd be curious, like, what type of negative experience, what was their perception of it? Was it a discipline issue that didn't like the way we promoted the discipline?
Part of the problem with the survey. There's not any drill down capability any farther than right there. So you've got those 10 and you don't even know who those 10, you don't have any way of finding out who those 10 people even are. So, but it's, even though I don't like having anybody in that, 10 out of a possibility of 3,700 parents, potentially. is pretty amazing.
Yeah, about 24% out of that count. And then the class size, I'm just curious, that must not be the elementary because we have some requirements for that. Is it the middle school? Is it the high school? We certainly want people to, after touring today in the middle school, it's a great site and facility. So I'm just curious what class size people were thinking of. So it is hard to figure it out when we don't get specifics, but we ask the questions for a reason. And so I would prefer that to be 0%.
Right.
So those are just the two that stood out for me on this one.
The next question asks over how would they rate the overall quality of education for the district. Again, excellent to good was very high, 96.6% if we combine those. The next question asks that, would you say that the education provided by the Sartell St. Stephen's School District during the past 5 years has decreased in quality, remained the same, or improved in quality? And so that total together was 93.5% for these. This was 6.4% for decreased in quality. So we'd like to see that purple line go a little farther the other way.
That was lower than I thought it was gonna be. I don't know the rest of you, that's correct.
Okay, the next piece was asking about where people get their information about the school district. So again, they're obviously utilizing lots of our different means of communication. In the other responses, Schoology came up a number of times, which was great to see, so we know that they're using that. Children, they're from their kids, yeah, you would get a lot from that. We had a few employees in there, and then from other parents was the other kind of major response.
I'm curious how long we're going to keep up a Twitter account, because I think last time that, I mean, I don't know why we put time into 4.8%. We have so many other ways that are more effective. I would just question why we continue Twitter.
Does it cost money?
No,
And I would-
just time to.
But I would argue that maybe there's students who are getting information
Yeah.
through there, because would be would you say, Jason, they might be getting?
Oh, yeah, that's how they all communicate with each other.
So even though.
They don't.
Let's ask.
Yeah,
There you go.
Sorry, Jay.
How often do you like send out a tweet on this account?
I think it's school closings get pushed out through Twitter.
No, she pushes out a lot of it, just
Anytime we post to Facebook, we just correct these.
Yeah.
It's not extra.
It's not extra effort at all. I monitor it, especially, but anytime I post something to Facebook, which does have a big following, because that's our audience, like
Right.
30-something a month, it automatically goes to Twitter. Through a link, so there's a lot of time.
Yeah, I know.
And I haven't explored expanding it because of that fact, as far as is more of a drive and to and I know students, so whether it be whether on the page might not be right up their alley. But there are a lot of students who retweet a lot of what we can push out there. So it's the students who are retweeting
Yeah.
That would be
I
better.
heard say those are the main ones when schools are canceling. Yeah, I know for students, especially now, Twitter and Facebook or Instagram, whatever we use, that's very big for some people. And I personally have moved away from it a little bit because there's lots of bad things that come along with the good. And so I don't personally follow this account, but I get a call on the phone. I don't take habits, so that's how I get my news.
Well, something to consider.
Okay. Okay, and then we got to our district level questions, which also provided some positives and some room for growth for the school board and for the district office. So the first question was about the awareness of the opportunities that exist. I think that we could maybe do a better job of communicating through the district, through each of the schools, just talking about different opportunities where parents have input. District office administrators are accessible to me if I have ideas, questions, or concerns. That was, if we can combined, the two top was 74.3%, and I know that at one of our first meetings, Jeff already said, one of our big things is we're in customer service, and we meet people with a smile, and we are here for them, and so I know that that's already been established, and that will be a goal area for all of us in this building. The school board members are accessible to me if I have ideas, questions, or concerns. That was 60.4% for the agree and strongly agree. And then the other highlight, I think, was the bottom one about the community receiving a good value from its investment, and that was 93%. So that was really very positive. And then the last one were the two additional questions at the end. The first question was about supporting additional classroom space at the high school to meet those state science requirements, and again, agree and strongly agree, that was 92% positive. And the second question was about expansion of the Sargent High School Theater Auditorium, and that was 82.3% in terms of the positive response. Questions, comments? That's pretty much the data in a nutshell.
Yes.
I just wanted to point out that it's important to know what the question for the survey is. And the question is, what do the people of Sartell, think about our district? And the answer is, they think it's great. So, I mean, it's important to articulate that. The other thing is, with the 90+% response rate, two of the measures of a survey are validity and reliability, with the fact that we are repeatedly over the years 90+% in response rate. That's fantastic. And so you need to, that this instrument seems to be working. So what is the quality of education at? And then there was a school, that was one of the questions. That is telling you what people think, the people of Sartell. It may or may not reflect reality as measured by other things. So anyway, I just wanted to, some subtleties about surveying and stuff, but I think it's a great job. So we need to keep doing it.
Any other questions, or this is in the discussion section, so.
Well, I think that with and Pam brought this up to me earlier, the school board being inaccessible, maybe we just need to get in, I think we're accessible, I just think people might not know how to access us if they have a question, and I don't know from a communication standpoint, from a district standpoint, better ways to just let people know that they can email us on the website. It's a little difficult to find, our website is full. I think that might be a helpful piece if people don't know how to access. I mean, I think if everyone else is taking this to heart, we should too. That's a weak point for us, so we need to figure out how to better articulate how to access each individual person.
That's a good point.
Because I think,
Did you raise your hand?
Dana's
Yeah.
go to.
What was the response rate to that, about the school board, the number?
I think it was 60%, 64.
64.
So most people think that the access to the school board is okay. We shouldn't read too much into these numbers. And the relative numbers, I mean, sure, we should look at it and say we can get better numbers, but it doesn't mean that they think we're not accessible. Most people think we are accessible, 64%.
This is like 23% that said not applicable.
Right. But still, I mean, I just think it's something, it's not a hard thing to push out a little bit further. We have one page in the calendar and a very difficult page to find on the website unless you know what you're looking for. So I think there might just be an easier way to let people know who we are. It might just be they don't know who to talk to.
It's not that hard to make that more visible.
Right.
Is what you're saying, right?
Yep, yeah. I mean, it shouldn't take a lot of work, but I think it's a way to just let people know that we're all out there, including our student reps, who they are, and so students know who to contact to if they have questions.
because I think
Oh, great.
overall, I know anyone that has contacted us, we have a quick turn and get back to them. So it's just having access to us, I think is.
And there's also a perception in that too. From a community as your position as board members, there are some people that don't want to access through you. I mean, I think that's probably why you see the high NA in that. That's not where they would want, they would rather go through the building principal or something else in that.
And that is
Which,
the
in that regard, I feel that's okay.
Yeah, I do too.
And so that's kind of why I wanted to.
And that's usually when I've gotten phone calls or you have your emails, I'm going to direct them back
Right.
that way.
I'll be direct.
one thing, since we're talking about communication, calendar, I've had a few of my good friends, where's next year's calendar? I know where it is on the website, but you have to know where to look for it. Is there any way we can do a sidebar link or something that it's more, because you have to go to About Us and go to calendar, and then there's different,
Like,
just throwing that out there. I've had people ask me,
to get to the calendar on the website.
We need
You
a
have to-
pop-up.
yeah.
We need a pop-up. It just says calendar.
well, I'm being serious about this.
You can put it right on the front page.
People don't.
Yeah.
And it just has a button, district calendar, principal
I
district.
think it should be on the sidebar too. I think if people let, what should the
Well,
stats on
the-
it? It'd be
I
interesting.
bet you get a lot of.
The interactive calendar is on the sidebar.
I thought so.
She's saying the
So,
next, the one that we.
so if people want
You're
just a
saying the
printed
next
version,
This coming school year, coming into the next school year, they were.
Oh, not for what we're doing right now.
Correct.
But what's
No, not the
school
calendar.
year?
They
Oh,
want to know when the vacations are.
Okay.
Yeah.
I said, go to the district website.
Okay, I see what you're talking about.
Anyway,
Because
so that's.
because the pop, the
No,
interactive
that's-
was right there.
That's not that one.
But we might want to put next year's calendar, you
It
can click
says
right underneath it.
beautiful calendar.
Well, but that's
But
still
that's
not what
this
they're,
year's calendar.
she's asking for the next year's,
20,
you know, like when
14,
is.
15 academic
Yeah,
calendar.
so they can start planning.
Just,
Yeah.
what people have been asking, so I'm
Yeah,
just
I
sharing
understand.
that.
Okay,
Any other questions to Kay on the survey?
no, nice presentation.
yeah, well,
Thank you, Dave.
Okay.
Thank you for taking the time to do that. All right, last but not least then, superintendent evaluation. And you and I talked about this briefly at our leadership
Yep.
meeting, but I will let you introduce this.
I will.
Okay, thank you.
MSBA and MASA, which is the administrators group and obviously the school boards group, have put together a superintendent's evaluation that is very familiar to me, because in looking through it, it's very similar to the one that the Iowa ASA and the School Board Association had combined with down there. So there's a lot of similarities to it, and even though the state does not require that you formally evaluate me, which I think is kind of crazy, to be brutally honest, I think if we made great inroads here recently with our evaluation system for our teaching staff, for our administrators, we need to do that for the guy who's responsible to the board, and that's me. So I would really like for a subcommittee or a smaller group to look at that and go through it, because the timelines in it, just like our one with our teachers, are what make it valuable. That you have the conversation, you set the goals, we know where we're going to be, and we follow that. And it really has to be a commitment on both sides, from the board being willing to understand there's some time that goes into that, and of course the superintendent follow through and make sure those things get done. So I would like a discussion basically to say, do you want to do this? And then number two, if we want to do it, who wants to kind of go through it right off the bat and come back and do a presentation?
Mary.
Just to kind of give a little history, we do in fact have a superintendent evaluation that was developed by a committee previously, and we utilize MSBA's work as well as some of the other things that we had. And I brought copies of it here. That doesn't mean we have to keep with that, but just so you know, we already incorporated MSBA's to it, and it is linked to, there's a self-appraisal and a board appraisal, and then actually district administrators also filled out a very similar form, and then there's a combination pulling that together. From that, we help set goals with the superintendent, and then there's another form that takes us through the expectations and what's the evidence of whether you've met those or not, which leads us to the summary, which has to be presented at a school board meeting. So we've done that. I certainly think we can take another look at it, but there is a tool in place that
I'm great with looking and
was quite
comparing.
effective for us in the past.
Okay. Did we use it? I didn't find one on Mike's, and I'm just not looking in the right.
So one,
Okay.
because he was interested.
Okay, and that makes sense, and that's kind of why I thought, well, maybe we weren't following it, so
And
I'll,
I think we actually have a policy that says we will do it every year. if
Yes,
that's
we
correct.
do.
you do.
So
And
we
what-
do have our own board policy saying that.
Mhm.
What I liked about this is the mid-year snapshot, just to
Yeah.
give you an idea and sit down and talk about it
Right.
mid-year, and then, more of
Yeah.
a
then I'm okay with it. I just want
Well,
to
I
make
think
sure.
we should look at it.
No, I
It
think we
needs
could
to-
incorporate
it needs to be-
pieces.
But I didn't want people to think, boy, we haven't had that, because there's actually, in the timelines, there were set up mid-year, 2 mid-year reviews with the board and the superintendent on where we're at and, developing that evidence and keeping us on track. It also linked to some of the vision pieces and the mission pieces that we had. So, there's a lot of positives in what we did. It was Lisa Kramer's, Dan, and myself who put the time and energy into putting that together. So, I would love to sit on a committee if you want to take a look at that again and show what we have, and then look at what you.
And I guess where I am right now is, I don't care which one, but now we're at the 2-month timeline. We really need to be looking at what are we going to do with it. And I guess that was my point in this. We need to decide which one we're going to use, and let's move ahead.
Either that or you take the two and see how they work together.
I'm good with that. I just think we need to, and obviously we're getting our process of our goals put together, so it's a great time to start setting those up. I've never liked, I know it works because of the length of my contract, the timing on it. I always think it's too fast. I think it should go from January to January would be a better time, but that's not when you hire a superintendent. So you make do with how, because it takes a little while for you just to get started. So I'm good with that, but
Well, there's one volunteer looking.
Mary.
All right, 3 of us?
Unless someone else wants to.
Because I should say, it is
Right.
chair heavy. I mean, the chair is the person who's got
right.
distribute, bring it all together, do a composite. There's opportunities in the current instrument for descriptive kind of statements too, and so you need to be able to put all that together. So there's a lot of time that goes into it, but I do agree it's an important thing to have. We're expecting all of the other
Right.
staff to be evaluated.
We'll just call this an ad hoc committee of appraisal and goals or something like that. And would you like to meet in the next couple, would you like to meet before school starts? Would that be, or you're?
Well, let's do this. I'll send you, through Stacy, I'll send you a couple of dates, and we'll look at what we might be able to put together to make that work. Okay?
I would say sooner than later.
Yeah, I think we want it done before our September board meeting is kind of where I was thinking. Okay?
Anything else for the good of the order? Entertain a motion for adjournment. Whoa. Krista, I heard Dan next. Krista, Dan.
Okay.
Motion made, seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.